book of Mark, chapter 1, verses 29 through 39. And immediately he left the synagogue and entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever, and immediately they told him of her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and the fever left her, and she served them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered together about the door. And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. And in the morning, a great while before day, he rose and went out to a lonely place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him pursued him, and they found him and said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." And he said to them, "Let us go on to the next towns, that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out." And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons.
My theme today is obvious, it's visibility. And I'll be talking about our faith, how our faith can be visible, and the difference by being visible will be to other people. Now, if you have ever been in Cincinnati, Ohio, and driven down Interstate 75, you couldn't miss seeing a 51-foot statue of Jesus Christ. It depicts a full-bodied Jesus standing with open arms. And the statue definitely stands up and has been nicknamed Hug Me Jesus. And you can't help but notice it. It originated several years ago by the Solid Rock Church in Monroe, Ohio. And the Reverend Lawrence Bishop is the minister there. And he said that the statue represents hope. And he wants it to provide people with a light in their day. Certainly that is a way that the church has made itself visible. This morning I'm going to be talking about Mark's Gospel because it talks about how Jesus' visibility brought the church itself into being. Now Jesus' ministry begins by proclaiming the good news of God. And he is determined to make his ministry as visible in as many ways as he can. He preaches, he teaches, he does exorcisms and healings. All of these different activities cultivate the attention of others who were in awe of his multifaceted ministry. Jesus was quite open to the public throughout his ministry. And one of the amazing ways that Jesus made his ministry visible began with the healing of the mother-in-law of Simon Peter. Now Peter learns of her illness, and there is an urgency to have Jesus come to his house. She has an unspecified fever, which has weakened her and her whole body. And Peter is very worried. And he tells Jesus that this is an urgent thing, and can he come quickly? And perhaps you can enable my mother-in-law to be healed. So Jesus does just that. He goes to Simon Peter's house, and he goes in where she is lying down in pain and in agony. And he takes her by the hand and lifts her up. Not only does Jesus cause the fever and symptoms of her illness to leave her, but the amazing thing, her recovery is so complete that she is able to get up and to serve others who all came to see how she was doing. As word spread of Jesus' healing power, all who were sick physically, psychologically, or emotionally, or possessed demons, were brought to him for relief. And Jesus' success is indicated by the observations that the whole city crowded at Simon Peter's door, looking for help from Jesus to heal them. Mark's gospel carefully records much of what Jesus did during his ministry, which was to heal others. Some of the healings were for truly physical maladies, such as fevers, blindness, crippled limbs, deafness, bleeding, and a great many were just exorcisms. For Mark, the authority to teach and the authority to work miracles was one and the same for him. Continuing the progress of Jesus' calling, we know that he was under a lot of pressure throughout his ministry. Once they knew that he could heal, let me put it this way, he didn't have a lot of free time. The demands of the crowd grew as word spread about these amazing things that he was able to do for others. Yet, Jesus needed to keep a balance in his life to maintain his responsibilities. So much so that in the early morning, while it was still dark, he got up quietly and went to a deserted place where he could be alone and away from the cries of the destitute. And Jesus exercised prayer for himself, and he meditated on his purpose and mission. What not only he would do that day, but what he could do in the future. The demands of the people were growing because they insisted he could do something for them. And Jesus was not trying to get away from his important responsibilities. Rather, it was a matter of staying connected with God so that he could maintain a clear sense of his purpose. But Jesus needed a time to get away and seek God's will that enabled him to do his work. And I think about us. You know, sometimes we just get so busy, we're so tired, we're so exhausted. And sometimes we just need to get away. And we need to pray and reflect on, you know, what is God's purpose for my life, for what I'm doing? And how is God going to help them? So we can understand that Jesus found it refreshing to get away and to find a place of peace and sanctuary where he could have prayerful communion with God. Meanwhile, when Jesus was away, Peter and his companions were hunting for Jesus. And when they found him, they told him, "Everyone is searching for you," which was certainly no surprise for Jesus. But he knew that he needed that time in between. From this brief time of having a retreat for himself and to be away from the demands of the people, he began to think about the next phase of his Galilean ministry. And he said to his disciples, "Let us go to the neighboring town so that I might proclaim the message there also. For that is what I came to do." Jesus and his disciples then moved on to the neighboring towns in Galilee, And they continued their public proclamation of the gospel. And certainly Mark continued to offer healing and hope for all those people he encountered. And I want to remind you, you probably already know this, but Jesus' healing hands continue in the world today. It wasn't just for people 2,000 years ago. It was throughout the ages that Jesus continued to offer healing hands for supporting people. And it is the role of the church to help heal people from their pain, whether it is emotional, physical, or spiritual. The church must help people see themselves as God sees them. Healing occurs when we can see what God has intended for each one of us. And we need to be reminded of Peter's words in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17. We are a new creation. The old has passed away, and behold, everything has become new. From the very beginning of Christianity, there have been periods of visibility and periods of invisibility. And there have been times of openness and times of hiddenness. To a large degree, the secrecy part of the church's history has been for reasons of survival of the faith itself. Well, there is no question that in several places in the world today, the church does have to meet in secrecy in order to survive. We are living in a time where visibility is limited only by our initiative in Jesus Christ. Of Jesus Christ getting out into the world. We only have to look and maybe remember what happened on Palm Sunday in Egypt just a couple of years ago when there were suicide bombings in 2 Coptic Christian churches. 45 people died and over 100 were wounded. Today in North Africa and the Middle East, Christianity is on the verge of disappearance. Today we are not to assume that because faith is out in the open, somebody else will be taking care of passing it along into the future. The fact remains that people who come into their faith do so not because they went out looking for it, but because somebody told them about it. This is our job as Christians, not to simply tell people about Christianity, but to demonstrate it with our actions, supported by our words. We need to pay attention to our own busy lives and to find ways to keep a balance with all the responsibilities that we have taken on in our homes, in our communities, just as Jesus did. We need to continue to make his ministry meaningful and visible in Sandwich and in the surrounding communities today. Sometimes we feel that we have really nothing to offer the world and that we have no gifts that are worthy of anything. However, if the church is to be in the healing business, we must give people a way to claim their own gifts. Now, all of us have gifts. And I've known some of you better than others, and I'm always awed at your gifts that you have. And there's also a strategy for the stages and the gifts that we can share. The first stage is to embrace your gifts. That is, to discover what your gifts might be. Is it singing in the choir? Or is it reaching out to others? Or is it helping with a potluck supper or bringing food to someone in need? Maybe it is helping people in their homes or at work. Now the second stage is to employ your gifts. Once you discover that you do have talents that God can use, that must be put into service. When Jesus healed people, it was so that they could now do positive things with their lives that they were unable to do before. And the third gift is to empower your gifts. And this is the most challenging, but the most rewarding expression is to make your gifts visible. Make them visible. Our gifts must now be set loose so that we may take on a life of our own. And only in this way can our own gifts grow and multiply to help others. As we learn from Mark's Gospel, the very point of Jesus' ministry was to serve others, and that hasn't changed today. And visibility plays a key role in serving others then, in Jesus' day, and it continues today. So the question is, in what ways do we continue to serve others in our communities? And what visible impact will it have on our church and attract people's attention of what we are doing? I'm going to close with an observation that I have. It was from a letter that I got from my son just day before yesterday. And he is an active member of his church in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And he sent me 3 custom-made masks made by a woman in his church for me. My son Troy knew the kinds of material that I liked. So he talked to her and she made 3 masks for me. And you'll see me wearing them soon. He also said that it had been a very busy week for some of the members because they were working on fixing up a home for a grandmother who had just gotten custody of her 4 grandchildren. He said it was a very good week, but quite exhausting. Remember, we all have gifts, and all those gifts we have will make a difference in people's lives because we have made our faith visible. And I pray that we can continue to make our faith visible to others. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 368, My Hope is Built on Nothing Less. compassion. Be deliberate in enacting your faith. Be steadfast in celebrating the Spirit's power, and may peace be your way in the world. Now return to your homes, but not to stay. Our pilgrimage is not complete. So come again. Join us on our common journey, seeking always God's promised shalom and sharing it with the world. Go in peace and come again in hope. Amen.